What's up, D-Gens? Here we go. Last one. Making it to the end. I finished the book. That's right, I know how to read. It's really good. It's important. I like it. But a couple things we're going to go over today. The last 8 teams, of course, for the review. We're also going to go ahead and get some guest props if you want to on this one. I know I'm going to be taking them, but I'm going to give them to you if you want to take them. And then we officially have the Hall of Fame game up. I have it in front of you, all that kind of stuff. We'll get into that pick as well. Let me just start off with that to get that out of the way. So Jets at Browns. We've talked about this all summer. Finally, the line is up. The Jets are the dogs, I guess, if you want to call it that, 1.5. Actually, it started off at a point. It's been bet up to 1.5. It really does come down to just like home field, right? Cleveland, they're playing in Canton, Ohio. Cleveland's the closer team. It is what it is. It's home field advantage, if you want to call it that. Now, we'll tell you, I don't think that's really going to play a big role here. Kevin Stefanski and the Browns don't have anything to prove here. The guys or the people who are going to watch this game, they know it's not a regular season game. They're not expecting to see Chubb and Watson and everybody else. So I'm not really thinking that's going to be much. Unless the Browns just get out and boat race this team, I don't think the crowd is going to be much of a factor. That being said, though, I think the Jets, specifically Robert Saleh, probably come into this with a little chip on their shoulder, with a little motivation of like, hey, we're going into, their backyard for all intent and purposes. We're going to go there. We're going to show them what the Jets look like. That whole, rah-rah speech, right? I'm thinking the Jets outright win this one. I took the money line back when it was at plus 100. You can actually still get that line at GT Bets. I'm showing you my bookie. I'm going to talk about the affiliates again. My bookie, like I said, was really one of the first ones to put this line up. It was, like I said, the first one to move the line as well from Jets +1 to Jets +1.5. I don't really advise you take that 1.5. It's just not worth a whole lot, especially when you can get, plus 100 in GT Bets. GT Bets, like I said, took a little bit longer to put the line up, a little bit slower moving the lines. I think at some point you will see them go to like a -102, -105. But this is where we're at now. They both have the total at 33.5. I am also on the under 33.5. The under in the Hall of Fame game is almost like a you have to kind of thing. Even if it does go over, it's just like the better expected value play. You guys already know. There's very few actual starters are going to play. The coaches, for the most part, are really not going out there to try and kill anybody. It's just like, hey, we've got some stuff we want to work on. We want to, see what some of these rookies have, some of the, depth pieces we have, all that kind of stuff. Maybe run like a real play here and there just to kind of get an idea of a certain player and how they're going to react and all that kind of crap. But either way, they're not going out there to put up, 70 points. This is going to be a relatively low-scoring game, probably a little slow, probably a little hard to watch, to be honest with you. But we're all so damn thirsty for football, we're going to sit there and watch it. So, Jets, money line, game under 33.5. Those are the two plays. I think initially I was more hesitant with the Jets. I've just, after reading and learning and talking about them and really thinking about nothing but football for the last 2 months, I'm even more convinced the Jets win this game with Robert Saleh. So we're just going to take the money line. It's going to be a quarter unit for myself. But, hey, what is going on here? Everybody's trying to see my stuff. But anyways, so quarter unit for the Jets, quarter unit for the under, just because it still is preseason Hall of Fame game. But that's enough of that. Let's get into the review, and then we'll get into the props here for week 1. First team in the review, and actually this week it's going to be the Eagles, the Steelers, the 49ers, the Seahawks, Bucks, Titans, Raiders, and the Bills. And the Raiders and the Bills, I actually just forgot to do them earlier, so that's why they're getting added at the end here. It's been relatively alphabetical here. But anyways, the Eagles, they did have, and I don't think I need to tell anybody this, but they had the number 1 most efficient run game in 2022. They had the top 5 passing game of 2022. EPA of .08 and .11 respectively. That's run and pass. The Eagles do have the 5th highest passing rate in the first half. And really, and I don't think I'm the last one or the first one to say this. I know actually I've heard other podcasters say this. The Eagles had a really clear strategy, and I think the NFL Anybody who's paying attention probably is looking into it or did look it up or whatever. But the Eagles' strategy was to come out, get a lead, beat the hell out of you in the first half, and then in the second half, just run the clock, grind you out, beat the shit out of you with their great offensive line and their good running backs and their like stable of running backs. And they didn't need to put up a whole lot of points in the second half. They're going to do their damage in the first half and then slow it down in the second half. So the only thing that can get them out of that kind of routine, right, is if you don't let them get that lead in the first half, if you don't let them, boat race you in the first 2 quarters, and then you make them have to keep passing, kind of keep putting Jalen Hurts out there, put him in a tight spot. That does obviously impact their style of play. But that's what happened last year. Now, last year, they did have a little bit of an easier schedule. They played 8 games against the top 10 run defenses. Still did amazing, obviously. This year, though, they are going to be playing the second toughest schedule of run defenses. Last year, 8 out of 10 is really not, it's a lot of really good defenses, but that's pretty much it. It was just 8 games. So they come out about, 17th or so as far as like difficulty of schedule, specifically in run defenses. They're going to go from about average to playing the second toughest group of run defenses this year. That's a really uphill challenge for a team that wants to be able to run, milk the clock basically and run the ball out, assuming that their strategy is still the same. Now they do close out the season with 4 games against the bottom 10 run defenses. So for, actual on the field play, that should be pretty good, right? It should let them kind of finish out the season strong, assuming that they want to play how they played last year. But more specifically for fantasy, if you have a fantasy team and you're thinking about, those last couple weeks, those championship weeks, you may want to look to get a running back from the Eagles. I couldn't tell you if you want Penny or, Swift or whoever, because who knows what the hell's going to happen by now or by then. But they should have an easy schedule as far as run defenses specifically. Now, one thing that Hurts did struggle, and he didn't really struggle with a whole lot last year, but he did struggle with passing out against his own defenses. So when he played against zone defenses, he took more sacks, he had lower yards per attempt, and really his efficiency dropped pretty significantly. He's typically a positive passer, right? So 0.13 expected points per attempt in the pocket. It dropped all the way to negative 0.41, especially when throwing outside of the pocket. So really a big change, and that's a lot of time it is due to his own defenses. He's not able to kind of get the reads he wants and make those early decisions, and he has to hold the ball for a little bit longer. But now they do go from playing the 9th easiest schedule of defenses to the 9th toughest schedule of defenses in the passing game as well. So the difficulty is going to be up on both sides, whether they're passing or running. And then lastly, those tougher defenses are probably going to be bringing more pressure against Jalen Hurts. And if he has to run outside the pocket, if they are playing zone defense, it's going to be a tougher battle for him. Not to say he can't do it. The guy is amazing. He's up for the challenge. But it's not going to be a cakewalk like it was last year. He's not, he shouldn't go out there and expect to just dominate everybody because they are going to be playing him a little bit differently, of course. And he is just going to be playing better teams as far as like better defenses and better schematic defenses. So should be a good team. It's just the tougher defenses, and they also do have some rest disadvantages. It's going to give them kind of an uphill battle. So I fully expect them to still make the playoffs, to most likely win the NFC East. Just know it's probably going to be a little bit tougher this year. Let's move on to the Steelers, another Pennsylvania team. Pickett last year, played fine. He basically played like an average rookie quarterback, specifically on early downs, and that's one thing that we like to look at as far as like analytics are concerned. Is because on the early downs, it's not like 3rd and 15, right, where everybody knows that you're going to pass. It's not 4th quarter, we got to come back. There's all these different scenarios get kind of thrown out the window. 1st down, 2nd down, you pretty much have your pick as far as what you want to do, how far you want to go, and you kind of get to set the tempo as the offense. So that's why we look at those when we're really trying to get into the nitty-gritty for quarterbacks. The problem is 3rd downs, which he played amazing with. He was awesome when he played 3rd downs. His efficiency went up, his EPA went up, all that kind of stuff was great. The only thing is they're not really a sticky stat. Like I was just saying, there's a lot of schematics, there's a lot of scenarios that go into that, and so it's hard to say, yeah, well, he was great, he was an elite quarterback on 3rd downs, he's going to do it again every single time, because it's just not the case. Justin Herbert was very similar his rookie year, came out, did great, converted a whole bunch of third downs, and he's still good, obviously, on third downs. It's just been a little bit less every single year, and I think we're probably going to see the same thing here with Kenny Pickett. The problem he had, aside from first and second down, really, was that throwing the ball deep was a real pain in the ass for him. He did rank 32nd in success rate, so obviously 32nd out of 32 teams, not of course including like backup quarterbacks and stuff like that. 31st in completion rate whenever he threw past 10 yards. So passing deep is not really his thing, and I think that is a problem, especially when you're looking, again, this is fantasy and on field, when you're looking to defend this guy, right? If you're a defensive coordinator, you don't necessarily need to do too high. You can do a one high safety. You can kind of shade coverage. You can kind of tell them to play underneath because you're not so worried about them burning you downfield. Now, they may get one here and there, but it's not their typical go-to play. Aside that, Pickett, on the rushing attack was great. He could run. Kind of helped Najee a little bit, helped Jaylen Warren a little bit, just being able to have that running quarterback open some lanes up and all that kind of stuff. The offensive line did improve on the interior, and they ranked pretty highly in run blocking. I think before this season, before the 2022 season, the offensive line in total was like a real question mark for the Steelers, but they ended up ranking up pretty highly as far as like run rate is concerned, run win rate that is. But both of the tackles were really the weak points. So they did draft a very great tackle, at least, in college, which was Broderick Jones from Georgia with the 14th pick in their first round pick. So that should at least clear up some of that. So I do think that the running game is going to continue to increase, and maybe that will help Pickett if they are, giving him a little bit more time, a cleaner pocket, all that kind of stuff. But if you're looking at somebody like Najee or Jaylen Warren, I'm tending to lean towards Jaylen Warren, but they should have a even better offensive line to run behind is the big point here. The biggest concern with the Steelers is that as far as like their running game is concerned, they ran a lot of 11 personnel. Again, 11 personnel is one tight end, one running back, and that means 3 receivers. And when you have 3 receivers out there, typically the defense spreads out, right? Like you have your corners on the ends, you have safeties on their sides of the field, even maybe a linebacker or 2 will kind of shade off in coverage, especially if it's zone defense. That didn't happen though. Even with 11 personnel, 78% of the time they saw 7+ man boxes. That means even when they were showing a pass play, defenses didn't respect the pass. They were still loading the box, and that's almost exactly what I was just saying. It could be that the play calling is just too predictable, or again, the defense just doesn't really respect the downfield threat of Pickett. If that's the case, they may want to look into maybe doing like some play action, right? Kind of everybody's expecting you to run, lean into it, do the play action. But either way, they are going to play a much easier schedule of defenses this year. They're going to go actually down to number 16. They are going to have more rest edge this year, meaning they're going to have more rest than their opponents typically. And last year, they didn't really have any luck go their way, which is like fumbles and field goals. They ranked 23rd and 27th respectively. And so hopefully those kind of regress more to the mean. And if that's the case, they could definitely have another winning season. And I could see this team even making the playoffs if just they kind of stay on the right trajectory. What it's all going to come down to for the Steelers is Pickett's development, right? Like, can he be a downfield passer? Can he make earlier reads? Can he, kind of play to his strengths? And also Matt Canada, because he's the other question mark here. It's very easy to pick on Pickett and to say that he's the problem and he's the one passing short and all that kind of stuff. But Matt Canada is the offensive coordinator. He needs to fix that issue. He needs to call different plays. He needs to speak with, offensive, whether it's actual players or other coaches, and kind of make sure that that's not the problem. Make sure that he's not making these real short passes and trying to just get the hell out of there. Anyways, that's enough on the Steelers. Let's go to the 49ers. The 49ers last year had the 9th worst injury luck last year. If you don't remember, they started with Trey Lance, lost him, had Garoppolo, lost him, went to Purdy, and eventually lost him in the playoffs. From weeks 14 through 18, though, with Brock Purdy, the offense was really rolling. And that's saying something, because that's a third-string quarterback, a rookie quarterback, that you had Kyle Shanahan back there trying to, catch up to speed on the fly, and he's still just offensively rolling. They were second in expected points added and third in rushing efficiency. So not really slowing, didn't slow the trains down at all. It just kept on rolling. Because they were so efficient, they stayed out of third and long, stayed out of bad spots. That really does help Purdy. Now, the only thing is, when we kind of, have to look at all this with a grain of salt, they did not play any top pass defenses with Purdy until they played the Cowboys in the playoffs. So it's, not going to say easy, but it's a lot easier to look good, to stay ahead of the chains, all that kind of stuff when you're not playing a top-rated defense and not having to run into one until the playoffs is just going to make his job a lot easier. Now, they actually played the second easiest schedule of pass defenses last year. That's not going to be the case, as I'm sure you can assume here. They also, because Purdy only had a couple of weeks as the quote-unquote starter, the really defenses didn't adjust to him as quickly as they would have had he started in like week 3, right? Either way, though, even with an increase in defense, Shanahan always has his quarterbacks ranked top 5 in both completion rate and yards after the catch, and that's really regardless of who's back there, right? Like whether it's Garoppolo, whether it's Lance, whether it's Purdy, whether it's freaking Beathard, or whatever the hell his name is. Any guy that he's been given, he's worked with them. He's great at adjustments. He's one of my favorite coaches. He's awesome at making adjustments on the fly and playing to the strengths of his players. So I don't think you're going to see too much of a step back from really anybody that's back there, but I do think it may change the way that the offense runs. The 49ers ranked first last year, defensively, that is, of course. Now, again, remember they played the 4th easiest schedule of offenses, so that's going to probably take a little bit of a dip as well. Their efficiencies did fall off when playing top teams, whether it was offense or defense. So the ranking fell from 1st to 30th when they played a top 10 offense, which is obviously a huge drop, right? Especially considering this year you're going to have tougher offensive opponents. The defense also ranked 31st specifically against deep throws. So when opponents are throwing more than 15 yards downfield, they were just not great at covering it, and they have lost some of their secondary. They lost Jimmy Ward and they lost Emmanuel Mosley. So without their secondary pieces, that weakness that they showed last year can really get exploited. And if anybody is reading the book, right, as far as like other offensive coordinators and things, if they take advantage of that, that could be a real issue for the 49ers, especially the way that they like to play with Purdy, which is conservative, staying ahead of the chain, staying on schedule, not falling super far behind, not asking him to do a whole lot, just kind of manage and get the ball where we need you to go. We'll do the rest. It's a lot harder when teams are making explosive play after explosive play after explosive play, and you're falling further and further and further behind. This year, on top of all the stuff that we just talked about and all the schedule difficulties and just tougher opponents, they also have a minus 20 rest edge. That's huge. That's like top 5 worst rest edges in the NFL this year. They do play 4 teams off of byes, and then they play Seattle in week 14 after Seattle's coming off a Thursday night game. So definitely not helping any. Now, their division specifically, I think they still definitely have a chance to win it, and they're probably the favorites, or they should be the favorites to win it, especially in a year where the Cardinals are just not even trying to pretend like they're contending for it. The 49